All right, everyone, here we go. We are going to look at Lesson 3, Instructional Strategy in Teaching Literacy K-6. We're going to look at modeled, shared, guided, independent reading. So looking at this instructional strategy, particularly in reading. I'll do a separate video on the strategy in writing, but we're looking at this specifically for teaching reading. I introduced this very briefly in 371, like maybe 1 or 2 slides, and I think I said at that time that we would go over it more in depth in 3103, and so here we are. I am doing it a little bit more in depth now in 3103. So you can really use this strategy of using modeled, shared, guided, independent reading in teaching reading, teaching writing, and really teaching any kind of subjects. It's definitely an instructional strategy. Okay, so let's jump into what this means. So you might recognize this little model here. So basically we have, okay, I'm going to click into, and so I can circle things, which will be super fun for me. And so we have modeled instruction here, which is basically has the highest teacher support of all of these instructional models. Then we go into shared instruction right here, which is then the teacher does most of the tasks, but the students are more involved. Then we have guided instruction. This is where, oh, let's see, come on, there you go. This is where you are working in your small groups and you are guiding the students in a particular concept, and you have assessed that this child needs help in this particular concept or would benefit some enrichment in this particular concept, and then so that is in small groups. And then ultimately what we want them to become is be able to have some independent practice. So that is, again, low teacher support in there. So we're going from high teacher support, let's see if I can draw an arrow, to low teacher support. Okay, so let's come back to here. So now what we're going to do today is we're going to have a look at these, and then in our collaborate session I'm going to do some examples of all of these, so you'll get a chance to actually be part of some of the examples. Okay, so oops, I'm on the wrong screen here. Let's do this screen. So basically, modeling is that you are actually modeling the thinking for your students. I'm just going to read this definition. Think aloud to make the internal processes of reading and writing visible as the teacher uses prompts and questions to share his or her thought process with the students. Okay, so you're actually thinking out loud, but you're actually thinking through a strategy that you want your students to use. This is the time of really explicit teaching. Probably when you think about teaching, this would be the section of this instructional strategy that would be the best linked with sort of stand and deliver. So this is where it's very explicit teaching. The teacher has a very pointed concept that they want to try to get across, and this is the highest amount of teacher support in all of these 4 that you will give to your students. Okay, so let's think about these think alouds are actually really kind of interesting, because often we think about telling our students how to do something, but when we phrase it as, oh, I wonder if I tried this, or, oh, I never thought about that, it seems to connect better with the students. So for reading, we have something like this. I'm not sure what this word is. I know that it begins with the letters S and H. I can use some clues from the story to help me figure out what this word is. When I look at the pictures, I know that the story takes place underwater. The story also has characters about other fish, like clownfish and angelfish. I think the word might be shark. It makes sense in the story, starts with an SH, and the sound the letters S and H make together, the sh. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I'm going to pull up my little pencil again here. Okay, so let's take a look. So you're teaching the students to look at the beginning, letters. You're teaching them to take some clues from the story. You're teaching them to look at some of the pictures and you're starting to say, okay, what is the actual story about and what word would make the most sense? So you're teaching a lot of different concepts in your think aloud, but you're not specifically saying, okay, when you come to this word, you should do this and this, which doesn't have as much impact as you kind of making it look like you're really that you're really sharing your thought process with them. So that's kind of an interesting concept. We are going to talk specifically, this whole instructional strategy comes under what's called balanced literacy. It's where you're teaching all sort of different ways to think about reading and writing. And we're going to talk next week about some of the pros and some of the pitfalls of balanced literacy. And so when you see some of these examples, when I come to them next week, you'll know that that there are some people who think that these are the best ways to teach children how to read and write, and others think that there are obviously different ways. I'm going to leave the other two with you to look through rather than read them to you. But the Think Aloud is really a cool way to model what we want our students, how we want our students to think about reading and strategies to use to actually learn how to read. Okay, so the role of the teacher. So this is what you have to prep for your modeled reading time. So in preparation for modeled reading, you are, two L's, one L, oh my goodness. What you're going to do is you're going to identify the teaching point that you're going to teach. So you're going to figure out what are you specifically going to teach. That's where all these outcomes that you've been dealing with your year plan, that's where these now come into play. You're going to select an appropriate text. So usually you will ground your modeled reading time in a text, in a book. You're going to plan several think alouds. You have to plan them. You can't just sort of hope they come. So you need to be thinking, okay, what reading strategies am I actually going to teach, and what do I want to teach? I want to teach them to look for clues. I want to teach them to look at the pictures. I want to teach them to look at the first two letters. And so you have to plan these think alouds. Don't just wait for inspiration to come to you. Actually plan them. And then prepare after reading activities that focus on the same teaching point. Because what you want to do is you'll see in some of the examples, they keep coming back to the same point, but sort of rewording it differently and bringing in different aspects. So be really thinking about what you're going to do with this afterwards. Okay, so before modeled reading, so this is what you're going to do. Sorry, I'm frozen over here on my other page. What you're going to do before reading is you're going to introduce the text and talk about its context. So for example, I'm just going to run and get my other screen has stopped. I don't know why. Interesting. Okay, so I'm going to actually just do a little bit of this one. So you might want to say, introduce the text and talk about its context. So you discuss the cover. So here's green. So you might say, okay, what do you see on this cover? Okay, who's the author? Who's the illustrator? Tell me what you notice about this particular book. Tell me what you notice about the back. Have we read anything else by Laura here? Okay, then you discuss the purpose of the text and the text type. This is a fiction book, it's a nonfiction book, and hopefully it will teach us, what do we think it's going to teach us? A little bit about the color green. We're also going to just discuss the genre. We're going to examine the back cover, the end papers of the text. So if you have like a biography or something, it might have some pictures in the back. This one doesn't. But if you had a glossary, things like that. Then you're going to ask the students to make predictions. Predictions are so amazing in that it helps the students to stay engaged, and it keeps they're really actively listening then to the book all the way through, because they're trying to make sure, they're trying to see if what they predicted came true. And if it doesn't come true, if they didn't predict accurately, that's fine. And then you talk about, why did you think that? And wow, that's totally legit. Maybe this picture totally took them in a different direction. Then you ask students to formulate questions they think the text might answer, and you activate students' topic knowledge through questioning, and you review or introduce key concepts about the teaching point. So again, this is before reading the book. So this was my book for the day. That's what I would do before I read the book. Okay, I am going to keep going here. I'm not going to add on a bullet point though. I'm going to. Okay, so during modeled reading, you are going to, and this is back to 371, read the text demonstrating fluent reading. So you are going to read it like you did for the 371 assignment. You're going to include voices and actions where appropriate. You're going to conduct think alouds to demonstrate the desired teaching points. You might want to stop and be like, whoa, this is really interesting. I've never seen this word before, but I know some strategies. So that's the kind of thing. Explain vocab if it's necessary as you go through. You check whether students' predictions are confirmed, and you check whether students' questions are answered. Sometimes during modeled reading, you'll want to just read the book through once so they get the whole idea, and then you can go back through and be talking about vocab and all those kinds of things in there. Okay. So these are examples of modeled reading. What I want you to do is stop the video right now and actually just go and watch these. Go and watch these videos. They're about 9 to 10 minutes each, and it'll give you a good example of what modeled reading is. And I'll see you for the next video.